I live my life one video at a time. Nothing else matters. Not my views, not the algorithm, not YouTube and all their bullshit. For those 8 minutes or less, I'm free. Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it!
So this week marks the 20-year anniversary of The Fast and the Furious. It's hard to believe that this relatively modest action movie that was released in 2001 would go on to be one of the biggest movie franchises in history, with its most recent entry, Fast 9, being released in just a few days. To be clear, the first film, actually the first 3 films, were mostly based in the world of underground street racing, with some minor heist and crime elements thrown in for good measure. But through time, eventually it became all about the heists. Each film needed to make the action sequences bigger and more over the top than the previous film.
That makes sense.
But as I already stated, the original Fast and the Furious had much more humble beginnings. At the time of its release, there was no huge stars in this movie to speak of. The closest thing would be Buffalo Bill as one of the cops.
Put the fucking lotion in the basket!
This movie basically propelled Paul Walker and Vin Diesel into the superstar status that we know them in today. I think it was all about being in the right place at the right time for them. This movie just so happened to strike a chord with audiences back in 2001, and it kind of inspired this interest in car culture and underground street racing. In fact, I would venture to say that this movie introduced a lot of people to underground street racing and what goes on in that world, as well as introducing them to the idea of high-performance cars as well. The film features undercover cop Brian O'Connor as he attempts to infiltrate Dominic Toretto's street racing gang to discover if they are responsible for hijacking trucks that contain DVD players and radios and such. My, what a simpler time it was. Brian's initial goal is complicated by the fact that he starts to warm up to everyone who's in the crew, especially to Dom's sister Mia. This may be the first simping ever caught on film. If you're eating shitty tuna sandwiches with no crust just to talk to a girl, you might as well be on Twitch right now. Damn! But anyway, through the course of the film, Brian isn't trusted by most of the team, and rightfully so. But after he saves Dom from being arrested by the police, and it didn't help that Dom's team pretty much abandoned him also, everything quickly changes and Brian slowly starts getting integrated into the crew.
Yeah, cause the buster kept me out of handcuffs. He didn't just run back to the fort.
A lot of people have made comparisons between this movie and Point Break, and those comparisons do make a lot of sense. If you switch out surfing with street racing, they're pretty comparable movies. Quick note, a lot's been said about the unrealistic nature of some of the racing sequences in this movie, but I personally still find those scenes to be exciting and really well done. They shoot these sequences in a very stylistic manner, and they even go as far as to taking you inside of the car and showing you the interworkings of the engine. Yes, it's CGI, but it kind of works for what this movie was trying to do. Plus, constantly driving at high speeds is a surefire way to excite your audience. Isn't that right, Jack?
There's nothing I look forward to with greater pleasure.
Through Brian's interactions with the group, he starts to learn more about each and every one of them. He realizes that these people are more than just street racers. They have a lot to offer, and they are a misfit family that were all brought together by their surrogate big brother Dominic. This is a theme that they use a lot throughout the sequels.
There's always room for family.
So as Brian gets closer to Dominic and Mia, his vision does get clouded a little bit. You're in too deep, man. Part of him knows that this crew is responsible for the hijackings, but he just doesn't want to believe it, because he's allowed himself to get attached to them and feel like he's part of that family. He even gets caught at one point doing undercover police work by Dominic and manages to talk his way out of it somehow. Johnny Tran is this film's villain, I guess you could say, but he's kind of a fake tough guy. When he actually gets raided in the movie by the FBI, it's clear that he's just a rich kid who's kind of playing along.
What's the matter, dog? You in Paris? This guy's a gangster? His real name's Clarence.
And after that, it's kind of hard to take him seriously. In the movie, actually, Dominic doesn't really take him seriously much after that either. One of the best scenes in the movie is when Dom opens up to Brian about what happened to his father and the guy who he nearly beat to death at one point. Vin actually does a really good job in this scene, and he shows some emotional range. 1, 5, 6, 3, 2, 7, 4, 8.
I'm not running!
Once we get to Race Wars, Brian is running out of time to figure out who the culprit is. And the movie enters into this breakneck speed that doesn't really let up until the final credits. We go from Brian revealing his true identity to Mia, to a failed hijacking, that leads to an awesome action sequence where Brian has to rescue Vince from the side of the truck. Vince, who always hated him by the way, and rightfully so. And this leads to the two Tran brothers killing Jesse. Brian and Dom eventually chase them down and take them down. And finally, there's a climactic race between Dom and Brian. Supra versus Charger. I'd also like to mention that Dom's Charger is one of my favorite movie vehicles of all time, and it really saddens me every time they decide to destroy it. Bottom line is there's a lot going on in the final 30 minutes of this movie, but they seem to make it all work. Another quick note, when Brian reveals that he is a cop to Dom, you can feel Dom's anger just through his facial expressions alone. I always find it interesting how Dom has given up basically at the end of this movie. He's pretty much ready to lay it all on the line and doesn't really care whether he lives or dies. And this is all in a pretty much meaningless race. I can't say that I blame him. I mean, people are dying, he feels betrayed, his family is broken up. But by the end, Brian just has too much respect and admiration for him to let him get arrested again, so Brian lets him go.
And just like, open the door and let us say, you're free now, like run free.
The Fast and the Furious was a very influential film to come out in the early 2000s. It inspired a slew of copycats that were never able to quite match the same energy that this movie put out. People have kind of turned this franchise into a punchline at this point because there were so many sequels, but we should never forget about that solid first entry. This movie has cool action sequences, memorable characters, and quotable lines for days. The Fast and the Furious is one of my favorite comfort food type movies. It's a fun time and it has the distinction of being one of the most unexpected hits to ever come out in the cinema. That's why I'm going to give The Fast and the Furious the pleased Palpatine. Good. So have you seen The Fast and the Furious? If you have, let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below. As always, please like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications, and I'll see you next time right here on Real Shift. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
Y'all be cool. Shut up.